Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Entertainment Now podcast. My name is Nick.
I'm Ian.
And like always, if you're watching this on YouTube, we put all of our videos on our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a comment, all that YouTube-y kind of stuff. If you're listening to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other platform that allows you to leave reviews, make sure you go on there and leave us a review, because I haven't looked in a while, but I think we've only got like one or two reviews on at least on Apple so far.
Mm,
But what's going on, Ian?
nothing.
Nothing at all. Just
Nothing at all.
living your best life.
Well, I'm living.
You're surviving. Is that what it is?
I woke up today, so I guess that's about it.
What's that?
I said I woke up today. That's about it.
I will say that so we're recording this on Saturday. So yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, and I did manage to drag Ian out of his house.
Well, you kidnapped me.
I don't know if I really kidnapped you.
You lured me away with false pretenses.
What were the false pretenses? I just told you to get in my car.
Yeah. Isn't that what creepy guys in vans do? Get in the car.
Get in the car, little kid. Oh, that's
it's
great.
Kidnapping when you do it that way. So
yeah, I managed to just make Ian go out and mingle with other people.
Yeah.
At least it was a house. It wasn't like at a bar or anything like that. I did have a couple people at work. They were like, "Hey, are you gonna go out, and get drunk for St. Patrick's Day?" Like, no, I'm not. I'm not in my early 20s anymore. I don't do that. I mean, I could. To be completely honest, I couldn't tell you the last time I got drunk. It's been probably like 2016 maybe. So it's been a long time for me.
Longer than that for me.
I just don't have look, when you're my age, when you're in your 40s, hangovers last for days. So it's definitely not as fun anymore.
No, I get a hangover just thinking about it.
It's because you're old, Ian.
I am older than you anyway.
Not by much, just a year.
Yeah, actually closer to 18 months.
Well, but anyway, I guess you're closer to death then, I guess.
Yeah, but that could be 10 years younger than you. Probably.
Have you figured out what you're gonna do for your midlife crisis now, Ian?
No.
You need something good.
Well, like I mentioned yesterday, I'm considering hair clip for men.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Maybe. Depends on how much it is. If it's too much, I'd be like, I'll just be bald.
Could you do a Rogaine?
I don't think that stuff really works.
Oh, it does. It really does work. You just have to. You can't stop using it though.
Yeah, I'm not very consistent with anything.
I've noticed.
Except nicotine and soda. That's about the only thing I'm completely consistent on.
Yeah. Rogaine, that stuff really does work. Once you stop using it, all your hair falls back out. So I think it's kind of all that Hair Club for Men and all that stuff do anyway. They just kind of prescribe you the same stuff.
I was thinking looking into the Elton John surgery.
Elton John surgery? Didn't he just wear a wig?
No, that's hair. That's his real hair. He had surgery.
Oh, I know he was
bald.
He was bald. He had the ring, didn't he?
And yeah, he had the very thin hair that was if you really have to look close to see it.
Yeah.
Kind of like mine, I guess, to a point.
Yeah. I guess I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at a picture of him from the late 70s and then look at a picture of him now, complete difference. It's like he's wearing a wig, but that's his real hair.
Wow. What kind of surgery did he have?
I don't know, hair plugs or
That's probably what it is.
Yeah.
Nah, I just shaved my head. Be done with it.
Yeah, I never would have guessed. You cover it up really well.
Do I? Here.
Yeah, you cover your baldness real well.
Here. For all you watching on YouTube, this is how I cover my baldness. Just put a hat on.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm wearing a hat. Plus, I have bed head. I got a bed.
I can't wear like regular hats, so my fucking head is too big.
Yeah, I know.
Fuck off, Ian. No, I have like I don't know. I can wear hats. I make hats my size. I don't know.
Yeah.
I look weird in a hat. I was
Yeah.
never a hat person. Even when I was like younger, I never
Right.
wore hats.
And I totally agree. You look weird.
Yeah, like a
Oh,
flat
just in
brimmed hat.
general. Just in
Oh, fuck
general, you
off.
look weird.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
We came with a topic today
We did.
because last week, was that last week or no, 2 weeks ago, I think we had a topic and we never actually got to our topic. Was that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was within the last
Week
couple
or
of
the week
weeks.
before. Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about perfect 10 out of 10 albums. This is something I talked about on the Vinyl Den within the last like month or so, but our YouTube videos aren't very long.
Right.
They're only, 10, 12 minutes, something like that. They're cut pretty short because people's attention spans on YouTube are pretty damn short. So a vast majority of people aren't going to watch anything more than actually, even our videos, which aren't very long, like I said, they're like 10 to 12 minutes. Our average watch time on YouTube is like 5.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
It's about all I can tolerate of you too.
piss off. So if
I'm
you're
in a
doing
mood
something,
today.
yeah, just today.
Yeah.
So if you got a video on YouTube that's like, 20, 30, 40 minutes, or like our videos, which tend to be like an hour long, uh, you know, people watch some of it, but a vast majority of it goes unwatched. So
Right.
I figured it'd be, since we talk about anything entertainment based here on the Entertainment Now podcast, it'd be a good topic for us to talk about because I guess the whole like idea behind this topic was there was a conversation in the Vinyl Dead Facebook group, probably not too long before I did that video, about perfect albums, perfect 10 out of 10 albums.
Mhm.
And my kind of thought process on it was there's not a lot of them. Like, I've got a pretty high standard when it comes to music. So like if there's one track on there that I think is like a skippable track, well, it can't be a perfect album.
Right.
Even if there's not even if there's not a skippable track, but maybe there's like, I don't like the sequencing of the album, like the sequencing doesn't make sense, or songs seem out of place, but they're still good as songs. I might make a 9 out of 10, but it's not a 10 out of 10.
Right.
So I talked about 5 albums in that video, and then I started making this list. I've actually got a pretty decent sized list. Obviously, there's a lot of music out there that's been made over the last, 60, 70 years. So even though I've got a pretty decent sized list here, I still think it's a perfect 10 out of 10 album is still something that's kind of hard to do. And some of the songs,
Mhm.
some of the albums I've got on this list, I have kind of question marks next to because they're like, maybe it's like a 9.5 out of 10. Maybe there's like one small thing that I've got an issue with, but it's still a really great album.
Yeah, I was very picky, so I only have a handful because I was like, setting the standard is like not just no skippable songs, but just it has to be a perfect album.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said, and that's why I said there's probably, I don't know, I've got 30 albums on this list, let's say, probably more than that. But like there's a lot of them. Like we were talking before we started recording, an album like uh Hysteria by
Uh,
Def Leppard. I would think I mean, as far as like those kind of 80s albums go, I think it's probably like one of the pinnacle albums. It's a 10 out of 10 album, in my
mhm.
opinion. But it's not my favorite Def Leppard album, which is kind of funny to think. Like, I think overall, Pyromania is a better album than Hysteria.
Mhm.
But, there's a track or two I can kind of do without on Pyromania, even though they're not bad tracks. It's just not it's not that complete album. When they sat down to record Hysteria, they tried to record they basically wanted to record a rock version of another 10 out of 10 album, in my opinion, Thriller. Because Thriller was like beginning to end hits.
Right.
And that's what they wanted to do with that album. And Def Leppard wanted to do the same thing with Hysteria. And I think largely they succeeded. I mean, there's not a bad track on that album, in my opinion. And I think, like I
Mm-hmm.
said earlier, when it comes to like sequencing, I think all the sequencing works on it. There's not a song that seems out of place on there at all. It's a great album, beginning end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, one or two of mine are like, I guess, kind of like that. There's one that's specifically that's not like the best in the catalog, but it is. I'm less likely to skip over a track, or no, I wouldn't probably wouldn't skip over a track if I was listening to it, front to back. You know, whereas there's other albums in the catalog of this artist that I would,
Yeah.
have there's a track here, track there. That I'm like, I just don't really want to ever listen to those songs. Even though, like I said, kind of guess because I started thinking about it after we were having that discussion, I was like, well, I guess one of mine is kind of like that. It's not my favorite of the artists, but it is has no skippable tracks whatsoever, and the sequencing is all right. So,
Yeah. And that is
Raise Your Fist and Yell by Alice Cooper.
okay.
So,
I've got a couple of Alice 10 out of 10 albums, but
yeah, yeah, there are a couple of his. I wasn't sure how many we were going to pick, so I kind of went over. I started looking at like one album from an artist, but if we're gonna do multiple,
yeah.
we can do multiple albums from artists. I got tons.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because I like for Alice, I've got Billion Dollar Babies, Killer, School's Out, Welcome My Nightmare.
Mm.
Between those four albums, there's not a track I could skip over. Like I said before, like uh, they're just all incredible albums beginning and end. There's no uh there's no misstep on those albums, I think.
Right. For me, I think Welcome to My Nightmare, and this would be considered blasphemy. I skip over Only Women Bleed all the time. I don't like that song.
Really? It's one of my favorite tracks on and now granted, I will say with an album like School's Out is fucking overplayed.
The
Like
song, yeah.
the song is. I can do without that song. It's still a great song. I mean, it's still, I can't knock the album because
For that
how
one song.
overplay that song
Right.
is.
But every
Only
song,
women bleed. I feel like is the same kind of way.
I've never, even when I was a kid, I didn't like that song that
No,
much. No. But you're right. Once you pass that first track, which is School's Out, every song on there after that's it's just
yeah, absolutely,
10 out of 10 song.
yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, actually,
it's got two of my
School's Out.
favorite Alice Cooper songs
I
of
was just
all
gonna say the
time.
same thing. It's not
So,
my favorite Alice Cooper album. It's probably my third or fourth, maybe, but it's got a couple of my favorite Alice Cooper tracks on it.
yeah, two of them specifically are like probably tied for first place of Alice Cooper songs.
Yeah.
So,
Um, I also did want to say that like I didn't include any like greatest hits or compilations or
oh God, no,
soundtracks or anything like that. Even
no.
though there are some great soundtracks.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
I
But
what's that?
greatest hits, no. Great. I said soundtracks maybe, but greatest hits, no, because I mean
No,
they're
that's
designed to try to be 10 out of 10 albums.
exactly,
You know.
exactly. But there I've got a surprisingly quite a few side projects that I've got on
Mhm.
my list. One is plus 44, which of course I'm a huge Blink 182 fan, so I might be have Blink colored glasses on, but it's a side project that Travis Barker and Mark Hoppus did like without Tom DeLonge. I don't remember what it was, like early 2000s they did it.
Yeah.
And they brought in a couple other guys, and it's a fantastic album. It's one that I'd put it up there with some of the best Blink stuff.
Hmm.
And the funny thing is, plus 44 is actually the calling code number for the UK. That's where they put the
Hmm.
band together at. So here in the
Huh.
US, you hit 1 before you dial. In the
Right.
UK, you hit 44 before you dial anything. So
Ah,
that's
interesting.
where the name of the band came from.
Gotcha. Well, for me, there's no question. This is probably my favorite top 10 out of 10 album, And does help that you don't skip any tracks, and that's Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull.
I've got
To
that on
me,
my list too.
that is
I was like,
my
well,
ultimate.
it's a good song. There's no
You
other
can't
songs
skip
on the
it.
album.
Yeah, you can't skip it. There's not even, I don't even think, well, with the newer releases, they've got it all broken up, so
Yeah,
you
but it's
can
not.
technically skip.
It's all one song.
It's all one song. But I mean, that's a 10 out of 10 album on every level for me.
Yeah.
You know,
I
there
would say
isn't a
that,
single level that it's not.
yeah, I would say the only knock that some people might have against it, I don't,
Mhm.
but I can see where some people have an issue with it being all one song.
Yeah, yeah.
One long, like 45-minute song.
Well, and that the reason they've been breaking it up into parts is because we live in a world of streaming. We live in a world
Yeah,
of segmented music. So
yeah. The
yeah,
one thing I always think of whenever I think of Thick as a Brick, I remember, like, do you remember before I moved to Tennessee, you and I used to go out on like Wednesday nights, or whatever, we'd go play pool.
right.
And they had like the jukebox where you play music. I remember like a
The
couple of
internet
times.
internet jukebox too. So
Yeah, the last
yeah.
couple of times we went there, we'd play like Thick as a Brick and then fucking leave. So it'd be playing for like 45 fucking minutes. We wouldn't even be there. I always thought
Well,
that was
or it
funny.
costs someone a little extra to skip it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was hilarious. It's like, here you go. There's two tracks. You're gonna be listening to the same thing for 45 minutes.
That's not really the same thing. It's different enough throughout.
Oh, I know that. But if you're like, if you're sitting there like playing pool or drinking or whatever, you're like, fuck, how long is this fucking song? It's like,
Right.
Jesus. There's I think Jethro Tull has other 10 out
They
of 10
do.
albums.
Well,
I would
that's
put,
why I said I wasn't sure if we're going to do others, but there's a handful of other ones that I
yeah,
would
I would
say.
put Stand Up and Benefit both as, 10 out of 10s. I've always been a bigger fan of like the earlier blues kind of stuff,
Right.
blues rock that Jethro Tull did on their first several albums. You know, Minstrel is probably one of my favorite Jethro Tull albums. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 though, but
Well, it is for me. That one, Stormwatch is a 10 out of 10. Roots to Branches is a 10 out of 10. And it's not technically a tall album, but Secret Language of Birds by Ian Anderson is a 10 out of 10. Those are on my list. I just didn't know if we were doing multiple albums from
yeah,
other
we're
eras.
talking about everything. I don't give a shit. We got like it's a fucking hour to film, man. We can talk about anything we want. This, like I said, it's different than the YouTube channel because we can kind of ramble on for as long as we really want. The funny thing is, like, I was going through like Beatles albums. I was like, oh, there's got to be a couple of Beatles albums. There really isn't.
Maybe two.
I got Abbey Road.
Abbey Road
Abbey
and
Road's
Sergeant Pepper. Or
yeah.
for me, I actually Sergeant Pepper for sure. It would be three. It'd be Abbey Road, Sergeant Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour.
I think
And you could argue that Revolver might work, but I think there's one or two tracks that I'm just like, maybe I'd skip them. So,
I really think Sergeant Pepper is like a very overrated album.
oh, it may be,
I've
but I still
I've
like every song on the album.
yeah. I just had like I was going back and forth between Abbey Road and Let It Be,
Mm.
but
Hey Jude, I
there's
skip
a
over.
couple what's
Oh
that?
wait, hey Jude's not on there, is it?
No.
Oh.
But
The
there's a
other
couple of
song.
tracks on Let It
There's one song on Let It Be that I always skip over.
Yeah, there's a couple of tracks on Let It Be I can kind of do without, but Abbey Road's a fantastic album. Um but
I don't like Hey Jude. I don't. That's as a song. I just
no?
it's the repetitiveness at the end. It suffers. I call it the Layla effect.
Yeah, I mean I like the song. I mean it's
Yeah, the
about
song is fine.
it's
It's
a,
just it
it's
just gets
about
to the the
is
end. It's
it
like
it's not is it Julian Lennon it's about?
yeah,
Yeah. I knew it was one of John's kids.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Well, it's
because
Jude opposed to for Julian and Sean. No,
oh yeah. Well, Sean wasn't even born yet, so yeah, that makes
right,
sense.
exactly.
So yeah, actually, Julian just released an album called I think it was called Jude or Hey Jude,
Oh,
um, and there was like one or two tracks of his dad's that were on that album. I think it was on that album, or maybe he did it No, I'm sorry. He did one of his dad's songs as like a benefit for uh Ukraine, I think is what he did. After
Okay.
saying that he would never sing any of his dad's songs. But
Well, if it's for charity.
yeah, yeah. And I listened to the track. He did a great job with it. He sounds a lot like his fucking dad.
Yeah.
But Jude, from what I saw, has gotten a bunch of great reviews. Uh,
Yeah.
I haven't
I'll have to
listened to the
look it
whole
up
thing,
and
but
yeah, I'll have to look it up. I mean,
yeah, I've
it's no reason I keep Spotify around so I can listen to songs, listen to
yeah,
stuff that I'm not sure if I want to buy or whatever.
I've never been a big. Um, I like a lot of the stuff that that John Lennon did solo wise,
Right.
but I feel like there's a lot of stuff in his career that was really kind of overrated. Like a lot of people love a lot of it. There's not a single John Lennon album I can listen to straight through. Like I don't have a single Lennon album on here
Not
for
even
for
Imagine.
no. There's a couple of tracks I can do without on it. You know,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah, I went.
Plastic Ono Band is a much better album, like overall. And there's still a couple of tracks on there I could do without.
Right. Yeah,
I
I
think
went back
Plastic,
and forth on Imagine, but
yeah, I
I
think man,
ultimately didn't have it.
I think Plastic Ono Band is definitely, in my opinion, his best album that he ever did.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, but like I said, yeah, definitely check out that Julian Lennon, the Julian album. I think he did a really good job with it.
Hmm.
Another band that I've got a couple of albums from is Green Day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, they're a
had
couple for me.
Dookie and American Idiot,
Mm.
and I was kind of scrolling through my list. I was like, man, I can kind of put Nimrod on there too, even though there might be one track that I can kind of do without on that
Mm.
album. Uh,
Well, see, I had Warning over Nimrod because yeah, there's
yeah,
one. I think one or two tracks on Nimrod. I'm just like, they're not
yeah,
bad. It's just kind of forgettable. For me, Warning and American Idiot, um,
yeah,
for sure, and Uno. I know it's not
yeah. I don't.
controversial. I like every song on that album.
Yeah,
Not Uno Dos
that's
Tre, just the Uno one, just the
yeah.
Uno album.
It's interesting. They're supposed to be releasing their. They've got a new album coming out this year. What did I
Yeah,
say? I remember texting you the
it,
title of it. I don't remember what the.
1972.
Okay, because it was a year
Apparently, that's the they're
year that
all
they're all
born,
born. Yeah,
but
at
I
least
haven't seen anything official about it yet.
that's what the band was like teasing things on their. It was Instagram, I think, Instagram or
Hmm.
Twitter. They were like teasing things out about it. So
Right.
it's supposed to be
Well,
almost done.
almost done and being released this year are not necessarily the same things, even though we're still early in the year.
That's very true because Blink has been talking about their album being almost done since last year.
Right. Well, even if say Green Day finishes it next month, it's still going to take several months to mix and master it, and then you got pressing and all that other crap
Well,
for it.
that's if they wait until it's pressed to release it.
Well, that's true. I guess I mean, we could start getting some singles long before that, but you
Yeah,
know,
and who knows that they might already have a pressing slot saved
true.
for them.
Well, it's Green Day, so I mean, they could bump. I'm sure they could easily bump a few people if they had to.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Depending on
know,
what the label has.
they have the leverage to do that.
I don't even know what label they're on right now, though. Or if they're even on a label.
I don't know. I know they have Billy Joe has his own label, but I don't know about Green Day specifically because he's just got other bands signed to that, like the Long Shots and technically Foxborough Hot Tubs, even though they only have one album, and the Network, which I know you and I we were really hard on the Network. I've listened to them recently, and they're actually not as bad as I remember them being.
Really?
Yeah.
Now I gotta go back and listen. Yeah, I was not a fan, but yeah, Father of All Motherfuckers was their last album on Reprise.
Okay.
So I
So
don't
that
know
was their
what
last
label the
album.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that was like the last album. That's why a lot of people were saying that it sounded like a really rushed album because they thought
Mm.
that Green Day was just trying to get an album out just to finish their contract and be done with them.
I didn't think it was a rushed album. I thought it was an album that didn't sound like Green Day. It sounded
Yeah,
like, I don't even know what it sounded like. Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know how to describe what that album sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Because
big difference between that and Revolution Radio. Which, I mean, I didn't think Revolution Radio was a great album either.
no,
Uh,
it's not. It's definitely not in their top of albums, but um, it's at least a consistent Green Day album.
yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think they've released a really great album since American Idiot. I wasn't a huge fan of 21st Century Breakdown
Oh
either.
no, see, I like 21st Century Breakdown a lot. I think
I
it
mean,
has
there's some
a lot
really
of good
there. I mean,
things
there's
on
some really good fucking tracks on it, but there's also some really fucking bad tracks on it too.
it. I don't think any of them are bad.
They're not as bad as Father of All Motherfuckers, obviously,
Good, no, but that's
but
probably the worst. That's the worst album by a band I like ever. It's
yeah,
the
I
absolute worst album.
yeah, I was really excited for it too. And then like the first time I listened to it, I was like, man, this is fucking bad.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what the hell was going on?
It is to Green Day what Saint Anger is to Metallica, and I think Father of All Motherfuckers is the worst. Is by far 100 times worse than Saint Anger. I
Yeah.
like saying I can at least say I like some of Saint Anger.
Yeah. There's yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Metallica's a band though that I've got a couple of albums on there on my list also. I got the Black Album and Master of Puppets.
Absolutely. Yep. Those two. I went back and forth. I was going to go with Master of Puppets, thinking I only had one. But
Yeah.
yeah, Master of Puppets and Black Album for sure. Both are, to be arguably, and Justice for All is really kind of a perfect 10 album, honestly, as well,
Uh
for me. It's
yeah.
just not my, I like the other two better. But
Yeah.
um,
I know a lot of people hate the Black Album. A lot of people are like the very
well,
like they're like 80s, mid to late 80s Metallica purists.
yeah,
I think that the Black Album is just, you know,
sell out.
yeah, it's a sellout album, which,
Yeah.
you know, they I think they were trying to experiment with their sound a little bit and do some stuff
Yeah.
that's a little more mainstream, and it
I was
fucking
gonna say,
worked, man.
I was gonna say it's just more accessible. I wouldn't even call it mainstream. It's just more accessible
Yeah. Well, I mean,
to a
it's
larger
definitely more
audience.
mainstream than like a lot of the thrash stuff that they did in the 80s were.
Right, right.
You know.
Um, Arguably, it was still at the time. It was still probably it was slightly on the periphery of the mainstream because
Yeah.
hard rock and all that was just. I mean, there was always a place for hard rock in the mainstream, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like full blown mainstream like it was becoming with you know grunge and alternative rock coming out and pushing the
Yeah.
boundaries of that. And Metallica had a place in that, even though they're not grunge or alternative rock, they still had a place in it.
Yeah.
Because they were hard rock, metal, whatever. Um, but it's funny because people called them sellouts for the Black albums, and Metallica was like, "Hold our beer and give us those hair cutters,
Yeah.
those hair clippers."
Oh my god, man! I remember when they cut their hair
Oh yeah,
for
the
Load, and
world
they were
was
on. I remember what magazine they were on, but man, people were losing their fucking minds over it. Oh my
right.
god, they're like, oh my god, Thor cut his hair. Oh, it's like something like that. Like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, the Metallica lost all their magical powers because they cut their hair off.
That's more of a Samson thing, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah. Is that what it
Yeah.
was? Yeah,
Yeah. Thor cut his hair and everyone was like, "Yeah, he looks better. He doesn't look like a
yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I don't even know what he looked like. I hated Chris Hemsworth's long hair, but
yeah.
whatever.
Uh, yeah. But oh yeah, because long hair, well, you can't make good music with if you don't have long hair, I guess.
Right. Well, and to be fair, Load and Reload are not their best albums, but they're good albums.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, Load is a good album. I'm not so sure about
I
Reload.
think Load and Reload are probably better than any of the albums they put out since.
Oh, I disagree with that. 100%. I disagree with that.
I don't know, and all of the albums that they've released since then, I think Saint Anger is the only one that I don't like, even though it's not a bad album.
Right.
I just have issues with some of the songs on
Decisions.
there. Yeah.
I have an issue with the technique,
Yeah.
the way it was recorded, the way it was presented and mixed and all that. It's more of that than anything else that I have a
Yeah.
problem with.
Yeah.
But Death Magnetic and Hardware to Self Destruct are both fantastic albums. The three tracks they've released off for 72 seasons are
Yeah, I'm definitely
fantastic.
looking forward to the 72 seasons. I think that's
I
gonna be a
think,
really good fucking album.
personally, I think that could be their comeback album.
Yeah.
It's in terms of like huge popularity.
Yeah.
Uh, because all three of the tracks are like stellar tracks, and if the album as a whole is like that, I think it's going to be an awesome
Hopefully it
album.
is. Hopefully it is, and that's not like you go listen to the album and you're like,
And
oh,
it's like
that's
those are
the
the only three
only
tracks I
those are the
like.
only three good fucking tracks. No wonder they released them for the album came out.
Yeah. In
Which
fact,
it's happened before.
uh,
So
the last track that they just released, I can't remember the name of it now.
I don't know. I only listened to the first two. I haven't
Yeah.
listened to the newest one yet. But I thought it was I thought the first two were fucking fantastic.
Yeah, let me look it up because I think it's probably going to be, theoretically it could be my favorite song off the next album. Oh, If Darkness Had a Sun. Uh,
Okay. I haven't listened to it yet.
yeah, it's really good. Like, it's different enough, but it also harkens back enough to what their 80s sound.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's such a good song. So,
But another like band from that like late 80s, early 90s period is Guns N' Roses. And I
hmm
think they only have one like perfect album. That's Appetite for Destruction.
yeah,
As much as I like Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, there's probably two or three tracks off of each one of those albums I can do without. And I'm
yeah,
sorry, when you got a song like My World on Use Your Illusion 2, you can't be a 10 out of 10. I'm sorry.
right.
Like Axel trying to rap does not work.
No. Uh, yeah, Appetite for Destruction for sure. Is a 10 out of 10. No question. It was on my list too. Um, Speaking of 80s for me, it's and we mentioned it in the Vinyl Den episode. Stay Hungry by Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
That is a 10 out of 10 album.
It's the only Twisted Sister album worth listening to, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really is, to be sadly, but at least it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I guess it's better to have one 10 out of 10 album than a bunch of like 3 out of 10 albums that are okay.
Yeah.
Um,
There oh go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say that whatever was going on in the band at that moment, that is a lightning in the bottle album, in my opinion, for at least for them.
There's a bunch of like really good 80s albums though. I had
Oh
actually quite
yeah.
a few 80s albums on here. I had The Cure, Disintegration.
hmm
It's not my favorite album from The Cure. My favorite album is Wish, but there's a couple of tracks I do without on Wish, but my favorite, Disintegration is just an incredible album from beginning to end. It's one of those albums where you put it on, it's like, and if you haven't listened to it in a long time, you're like, wow, where the fuck has this been? Why have I not been listening to this?
Right. No, that's how I feel about a lot of the Cure music. To be honest with you.
And what American Fool by John Mellencamp is a great fucking album. Even though I'm not a John Mellencamp fan.
No, he's got a lot of good
American
tracks. I'll
Fool
give
is
him
a
that.
great fucking album though.
Right. Obviously, we mentioned Thriller by Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
For me, a couple of Counting Crows. I was gonna go with August and Everything After, obviously,
I had both of them on
but
there. I had that and Recovering the Satellites
Recovery
on there.
Satellites, yeah. Actually, I mean, to me, all their albums are 10 out of 10s because really, there's no tracks I skip on any of them, with the exception of maybe Saturday night, Sunday mornings. There's one or two tracks that are just, eh. I'll listen to them one time and then the next time I'll skip over them. But Somewhere Under Wonderland is actually probably their least skippable album, but it's also, I think, the shortest album. So,
Another great 80s album that I was thinking of. That probably is probably a lot of people probably don't feel the same way. A lot of people probably there's probably at least two other albums a lot of people would pick over this one. Is
Mm-hmm.
Agent Provocateur by Foreigner. It's a
Mm.
great fucking album.
More than
Great
Foreigner
fucking album.
4.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, they're both great fucking albums, but I think Agent Provocateur is a little bit better from beginning to end.
Mhm. In that vein, I would say Point of No Return by Kansas.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 album. No, it's my favorite Kansas album. I think it's their best album ever. Nothing
There's
more could
one.
be said. It is a 10 out of 10 album.
Yeah. There's I know you're not a fan of this band, but
The Eagles.
well, I haven't gotten to them yet.
Oh, okay.
Kiss. I think Kiss
Oh
has
yeah.
one really good album, and it's
Mm,
Destroyer.
no.
I
I
knew
mean,
I
it's
knew
a
you were gonna say that.
maybe a 10 out of 10 for you. I mean, I don't even think I could put together in a full album of songs by Kiss that I like.
Really?
Yeah.
Destroyer is a really good album, and I'm not a Kiss fan at all.
Right.
Eagles though, I am an Eagles fan. I think Hotel
Yeah.
California is hands down their best album. It's the like 70s version of Thriller kind of. It's like an album that just has a whole bunch of fucking hits on it.
Yeah. I just don't like the Eagles, and then I don't.
What yeah,
There's not.
would you say they're the 70s version of Nickelback? Isn't that what you said one time?
I've said that before. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's necessarily true. I probably like Nickelback better.
That's bad, Ian.
Yeah.
Which is funny because people love hating on Nickelback, but you know they're like the I think well, I don't know if they still are, but at one point they were the highest selling band of the 2000s.
Yeah. Yeah. They win
Like
awards all the time. I think they just won another award.
yeah, and they fucking sell out stadiums all the damn time. They just released a new album late last year, beginning part of this year, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got
I
like
would
an
listen.
orange van on the cover of it. I don't know. I didn't listen to it, but
Yeah. To me, it's like that scene in The Simpsons. If I walked up to a record store and be like, "What do you got?" Well, we got Nickelback or Eagles. I'd be like, "Oh God, I'll take the Nickelback."
terrible, absolutely
Terrible.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have like a new album on here, one that
Okay.
I never would have ever listened to before. I don't think I'd ever listened to a single song by this artist until my wife bought the CD, and then we were listening to it on the way back home from the record store, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like I ended up like ordering the Walmart exclusive when I got home. It's such a great fucking album. The album is Special by Lizzo.
Hmm.
It's a great fucking album. Beginning to
Yeah,
fucking end, it's a great fucking album.
I don't know a lot of her music, but everything I've heard of it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not even
You
in
know,
my wheelhouse of music that I like. It's
no, it's
traveling
definitely
music,
like
but
the poppy kind of stuff, but it's a great
yeah,
fucking album.
but I've liked what I've heard of hers. Um, the only two like newer albums I got, like brand new albums, they're 10 out of 10s for me, is Impera by Ghost and Patient Number 9 by Ozzy.
Yeah.
Those are, to me, those are 10 out of 10 albums.
Yeah. I couldn't put any Ozzy on my list. There's not I don't think he's got
Oh, he's got a few
like
for me.
one like full album where I'm like straight through. Maybe Blizzard of Oz.
Oh, see, I would say Diary of a Madman. Blizzard of Oz. There's. I don't like the song No Bone Movies. I don't like Goodbye to Romance.
Yeah. Well, I like Goodbye Romance. I think it's a great track, but
Steal Away the Night. Not a big fan. Um,
yeah, maybe
but
you're right.
Diary of a Madman's not skippable at all.
Yeah,
There's no there's
I
no skippables
I hadn't
on that.
listened to Diary of a Madman in like fucking years until um they just released a Walmart exclusive of it last year or the year before. It was the first time I listened to it in forever, probably 20
Hmm.
years. And I forgot how great that fucking album was.
Oh, it's. I think it's an infinitely better album than Blizzard of Oz, and
Yeah.
it's probably his best '80s album,
I do
his
have
best album of the
two
'80s.
I do have two rap albums on here.
Okay.
I've got the Marshall Mathers LP. which I think is hands down the greatest rap album ever recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And I got Kendrick Lamar Damn, which I've got probably in the top 5 as far as rap albums.
Huh. Yeah, you can't argue with you know what I mean. I'm not a big Eminem fan, but you can't argue with the popularity and the influence that
Yeah.
he's had with that album. So
Well, Damn by
can't
Kendrick Lamar was the first like non-classical album to win a Pulitzer Prize.
really.
Yeah. And that's probably an album where, I mean, and it is a really good album. It's not necessarily my favorite Kendrick Lamar album, but it is a really fucking good album.
Uh, um, I have a few Sabbath on my list. I was gonna go with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but again, since we can do multiples, you got Volume 4 and you got Sabbath Bloody Sabbath,
And
which are both
I had Paranoid on mine.
Paranoid. There, I think there's one song I can't. Was it? Well,
God,
maybe
there's
not.
not. I mean, there's only
No,
what
maybe you're
eight
right.
songs of the fucking album, but there's. I mean, like,
Yeah, no. To be honest with you, their first from Sabbath up to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, there's not any skippable songs on any of those albums.
yeah. I
No,
mean, I don't know. Master Reality,
no, I don't have
Sweet
any
Leaf,
skippable.
maybe. I don't know.
I wouldn't skip over Sweet Leaf.
I don't know.
No,
There's like their early period from Sabbath was fucking fantastic, though. Obviously,
right,
they spawned a whole new genre for the next 40 plus or 50 years.
right. Yeah, no, like I said, those. But if I had to like pick my two favorites, it would be Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and Volume 4 would be my favorites of those.
Yeah.
That era of Sabbath.
Going to the back to the 90s, Razor Blade Suitcase by Bush. I know a lot of people
Yeah,
love 16 Stone. I think Razor Blade Suitcase is
it is a
hands
better
down a
album.
better album.
Mm.
I would put Verses by Pearl Jam on there, even though I know a lot of people uh, really don't like Verses for some reason. I don't know why. It gets a lot of hate, um, even from Pearl Jam fans.
Well, from what you hear things. People hate on a lot of Pearl Jam for multiple reasons,
Yeah.
and I don't understand that. I mean, they're kind of like the United States version of Nickelback. Sometimes it's like it's almost
Really?
yeah. Well, in the sense that they're just it's trendy to shit on them.
They do. They do get a lot. But the funny thing is, they even get a lot of shit like in amongst Pearl Jam fans. A lot of Pearl Jam fans are either like they absolutely love Versus, not Versus, but 10, and really dislike a lot of the stuff that came after that, or
Right.
they're like I love Yield and everything that came after Yield, and the beginning part of their career is just
Clean up.
derivative, you know, bullshit that they're just trying to be trendy with.
Hmm.
Because their music did change with Yield. It
Yeah,
became
it
uh
matured a little bit.
yeah. And Yield's a fantastic fucking album.
I agree.
Yeah, I
I don't
still
think
think
I don't think Pearl Jam has a bad album.
they don't. They don't. Even though people like to shit on Riot Act. Riot Act is a really good fucking
Oh,
album.
I love that album.
People love shitting on the Avocado album, and that's a great fucking album.
That's
Uh,
probably in my top tier of Pearl Jam albums, to be
yeah, a
honest with
lot
you.
of people rank Lightning Bolt as one of their worst albums. And Lightning Bolt,
Oh,
I'd probably put in the top 5 of their fucking studio
yeah,
albums.
it's up
Just a
there.
great album.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think they've ever made a bad album.
Mm,
But I mean, maybe we're biased. I don't know.
yeah. Purple from Stone Temple Pilots is the same way. I'd put
Yeah.
that up there.
Hmm.
Just a great album. Was it Down on the Upside by Soundgarden?
Soundgarden.
Is another great album from beginning to end. An album that often gets overlooked because of Super Unknown and some of the other big albums that Soundgarden did. But I
Right.
think Down on the Upside is a better album.
Right.
I don't know if I'd classify it as a 10 out of 10 album, but
Yeah.
it's definitely up there. It's
I'd
definitely
have
up
to
there
look
for me.
at it again, to be honest with you. But To me, never mind. It falls into the category 10 out of 10. There's not a skippable track on it.
There isn't. That is, it's the album that in the mainstream, spawned a genre.
Right,
You know
right.
that genre existed and had existed since the late 80s before
Just not in
Nirvana
the
was ever a
mainstream.
band, but it was not in the
Exactly.
mainstream. Like,
Yeah.
uh, you know, you as much as people dislike Nirvana, they are the reason that grunge became what it was for a short period of time.
Well,
Grunge
and to be
existed
fair,
in the mainstream from like 88 to not even 88, from like 90 to 94 or 92 to 94 is a short kind of window.
right. But I don't think we would have had the big surge in alternative rock either
No, we wouldn't
if it
have.
hadn't been
We
for
wouldn't have.
that.
No.
Because there was that weird, like, gray area blending where alternative rock bands were considered grunge because they were a little harder edged than, you know, well, like Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam was lumped into the grunge, and they're not grunge. I don't even think Ten's a
No.
grunge album,
10,
but they were.
10 is a grunge album.
Is it?
10, yeah, I kind of think it, but it's their only grunge album. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
Versus is
even know
sure
if
as
I'd
hell
go.
isn't a grunge album.
I don't even know if I'd go that far. I mean, there's too many, know, cool guitar solo thing elements to it and stuff that just
Yeah,
don't really fit in with the grunge sound.
no, not really.
But
But
no,
Motley Crue, I think Motley Crue has one 10 out of 10 album. That's Dr.
I
Feelgood.
don't. Yeah, even that, there's even a couple skippable tracks for me on Doctor Feelgood. Although I do like that album a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
There are a couple other there are some punk albums that have 10 out of 10. The Living End self-titled album,
that's a
great
good
fucking
album.
album. Like maybe one of the most underrated punk albums of the 90s.
Yeah, I could go with that.
And Out Come the Wolves is
By
another great
Rancid.
one. Life Won't Wait by Rancid. I think Life Won't Wait and Out Come the Wolves, I think, are, you know, two of the top three greatest punk albums ever recorded.
Hmm.
And I swear to God,
I know I love.
if someone leaves a comment and says, "What about the Sex Pistols?" I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. I don't know
Yeah.
if yeah, because I fucking hate the Sex Pistols. I don't understand why people like the Sex Pistols. Like they they
I like
have
Anarchy in the UK. That's the only song that's even worth listening to.
they're a fake fucking band.
Yeah.
The Sex Pistols are the punk version of the
The
Backstreet
Monkeys.
Boys.
I was
The
gonna say the
Backstreet
Monkeys.
Boys. No, they are. I won't even like the Monkeys. At least I don't know. At least they had some musicality, I guess. But you know,
Oh yeah, I love the
the
Monkeys.
Sex Pistols were bullshit. They were put together. Their manager um, spent a summer in New York in the mid '70s and saw the punk scene
Hmm.
emerging with the Ramones and bands like that in New York. Went back to London to his clothing shop and was like, "Oh, I want to push the clothes I'm selling in my store. What's a great way to do that? Oh, here's these kids that keep coming into my clothing store and buying these clothes. I'm gonna have them start a fucking band." And it was the Sex Pistols. It was a
Hmm.
publicity stunt. The whole fucking thing. Johnny Rotten, Sid Vicious, the whole fucking thing was all just a publicity stunt. And they tried to be as crazy and outrageous as they could to get attention and
Hmm.
to sell clothing in their manager's store.
Did it
They're a
work?
fake fucking band. If you come with me at the fucking Sex Pistols, and I've got 3 fucking copies of their damn album, but still, they're a fake fucking band. And people, I just don't get the people hold them up as like the pinnacle of punk rock,
No.
and
No.
they're
When you think
fake.
of when I think of early mainstream punk, and it's not even mainstream, but you got the Clash and you got the Ramones. You
Yes,
don't need the Sex Pistols
no,
in
you
there.
don't.
So I mean,
They
even
helped.
Operation Ivy was in there in those early days, or
Well, Operation Ivy was
later,
like
but
88,
80s.
but
Yeah, but still those earlier days, those pre
yeah.
pop punk era,
Yeah.
pre
I mean,
pop
I
punk.
would say that the Sex Pistols definitely, influenced some of that UK punk scene.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know.
It was accidental. It wasn't from any like
Yeah,
that other.
and you know, Johnny Rotten is a fucking terrible fucking person. But
Well, go
and
by
the
those
crazy
standards,
thing
we'd have
was
to
like
drop a lot of albums off our
the
list.
only person that was like musically gifted in that band was what the hell's his, their original bass player. I forgot what his name is. Like if you go back and listen to Spunk, which is the EP, it was
Hmm.
not an EP, but it's like demos of a lot of the tracks that became Never Mind the Bollocks. Uh, it's better. Like Spunk is better. It's got a better sound to it, even though it's kind of raw because it's all just demos. They fired their bass player because he was wearing a fucking Queen shirt. Replaced
Oh.
him with we replaced him with Sid Vicious, who didn't know how to play. Sid, all of Sid's bass lines on that one fucking album were re-recorded because he didn't know how to play his instrument, and he was a big fucking heroin addict, and
Hmm.
just was high all the damn time. The whole band was all fucked up. It was just I don't know. I said I wasn't going to go on about Sex Pistols, and I went on for 10 minutes about them. But
Did you say you weren't going to go on about them? Because I don't
pro-
even think we were going to talk about
probably,
them.
probably. I don't know. I plan on someday I'm going to do a whole fucking YouTube video about why I hate the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like I said, I like the song Anarchy in the UK just because
Yeah, like,
it's a
but the rest
catchy
of them,
tune.
but the rest of them is
That's it.
just not good.
No.
Led Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin 4 is an incredible fucking album. But the funny thing is,
Two, Led Zeppelin 2.
everyone loves Led Zeppelin 4 for Stairway to Heaven, and it's
Right.
not even the best song on that album. It's a great
Well,
fucking song. It's an incredible fucking song.
here's the
And
thing. So Led Zeppelin 2 and Led Zeppelin 4 both have no skippable tracks. But I'd be curious to see how many radio hits came off of Led Zeppelin 2 opposed to Led Zeppelin 4. Because I think more came off of Led Zeppelin 2.
oh, I'm sure there was because I don't even know what singles they had off of. I was actually gonna look it up real quick.
Led Zeppelin 4 had
Black
Black Dog,
Dog
Rock and Roll,
and
Stairway to Heaven.
no, Stairway to Heaven was not a single.
Oh, well, it was
Just
radio hit. I'm not talking
Black
about
Dog,
single. I'm talking radio hits.
Black Dog, Misty Mountain Hop, Rock and Roll, and Four Sticks were the four singles off of off Led Zeppelin 4.
Okay.
I was gonna look up their discography and see what their because I think on Wikipedia they list what their singles were and how well they performed. Off of Led Zeppelin 2, the only single was Whole Lot of Love.
Hmm. I don't know. Maybe I was just thinking radio play songs because there's so many songs off of Led Zeppelin 2 that get even there to this day are still played on like classic rock radio, not just Whole Lot of Love, but Lemon Song and I'm drawing a blank, but there's a bunch of them.
I don't know. Whole Lot of Love is really the only track I hear a lot. Maybe the Lemon Song.
Mm-hmm.
But really that's about it.
Let me
But you're
look at
right.
it.
It is a really good album. It is a really good
Yeah.
album. I personally put 4 above 2 because of When the Levee Breaks and Stairway to Heaven.
Right. When the
Which
Levee Breaks is probably one of their
I think
best
they're
songs.
both, those two tracks are not only the two best tracks from Led Zeppelin, I think they're two of the best songs from the 70s.
Yeah,
And of course
they're up there.
I can't talk about 10 out of 10 albums without talking about Dark Side of the Moon. Of course I gotta have to have the Dark
All
Side of
right.
the Moon on
Oh,
there.
of course. For
Even though
you.
I
I mean,
know I
I don't know if I classify it as a 10 out of 10, but it's there's no denying that album for most circles is going to be a 10 out of 10 album. There's no denying
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's definitely, I mean, it's my favorite album of all time. And even some of the tracks that people don't generally like, you know, uh, you know, Great Gig in the Sky, whereas there's really no lyrics to it. Um, it's the emotion that the music brings. I think it's what makes it such a great album. What they're portraying through the music. Um,
Uh-huh.
it's not just the songs; it's the theme of the album that makes it, you know, such a great album. And and they did a lot of stuff production wise that wasn't done, that hadn't been done before. The whole, it's just a great album.
Right, right. I've got Rio by Duran Duran.
Yeah,
That's a
definitely a
10
great
out of 10
album.
album for, 80s new wave kind of thing. Um, yeah, that's a 10 out of 10 album for me.
I guess I could, staying with Pink Floyd though. I mean, I want to say The Wall, but The Wall
It's not.
does. So here's the thing about The Wall,
Mhm.
and this is why I don't include The Wall, and that is because there are tracks you could do without,
Yes.
but there are those tracks that you could do without, that are skippable tracks, are still
Part of
integral
it,
to
the
the
story.
story of the album.
Right.
That's the
I
thing
get that.
a lot of people kind of forget about, is the fact that The Wall is not a soundtrack.
It's a concept album.
It's a concept album, because the movie wasn't made for 4 years afterwards.
Right.
And the final cut was actually supposed to be the soundtrack to The Wall.
Yeah. I actually just recently listened to the final cut. I didn't like it.
There's a couple of really good tracks on
Yeah, I
there.
mean, I noticed some things. I was like, okay, that's all right. But just overall, it just didn't have much of an impact on me
No, and I
overall.
think because, like, and I know we've talked about this before when we talked about Pink Floyd, but like Richard Wright was like the soul of that band, even though he didn't have a lot to do with the lyrics. Musically, he brought a lot to that band, and he wasn't on the final cut.
No, that would
It's
explain it because
yeah,
it felt hollow to me. It just there was like
yeah,
nothing going on.
yeah, because he was
I mean,
he
even
was
listening to like, is that this really was supposed to be the soundtrack? Because
yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't.
The well, it was. I mean, obviously that album wasn't
There's
good.
themes, yeah,
The album wasn't going to be the soundtrack. When they recorded the final cut, what they were going to record was supposed to be the soundtrack,
gotcha.
but the
Well,
final
I
cut itself
just,
was not. But
I mean,
the
musically, there's some themes that are there that are present on the wall. I
yeah,
noticed that, but musical themes. But it's just, I don't
yeah,
know,
the
felt
final cut,
empty.
the theme behind the final cut is actually, it's the concept is about the Falkland Wars.
Yeah.
That's what the whole theme of the album is about.
Mm.
But
I didn't catch much of the lyrical themes just because only it was one time listened through, but
yeah,
I was driving. So
it's but yeah, the final cut, it's an okay album. It's definitely, I definitely rank it towards the bottom of my
right.
favorite
Okay.
Pink Floyd albums. But yeah, The Wall, I didn't put The Wall on my list just because, like I said, like
It's
overall, like
not
to listen to the story of it, it all makes sense. It all works together. It's
right.
not where sequencing absolutely matters in that.
Absolutely.
But if you're somebody that lives in 2023 and doesn't listen to an album, they listen to songs streaming through their, on their phone.
Especially a double
There's
album.
a lot of skippable tracks on there because a lot of them don't make sense out of order.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with that.
As far, and I'm a big Queen fan, but I can't put a Queen album on
No.
there. Queen never recorded an entire complete album.
Well,
You
complete
know,
10 album.
yeah, there are, I would say, large chunks of every single one of their albums I could do without.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree.
On every single one of their albums, there are incredible songs, though.
No. I have a playlist on Spotify of Queen songs. It's the best songs off of every one of their albums. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a long playlist. I can, but it's not like other artists that I have that I did the same thing with.
yeah,
Um, but while we're talking all of that, I'll tell you how many tracks I got on that playlist here.
but yeah. Well, as far as like Queen goes, yeah, it's just, man, they recorded some great tracks, and I wonder if it's because so many. I mean, every band member wrote songs on every single album,
Right.
so maybe there was just too much variation between tracks. Maybe, I don't know. Uh, there because with a lot of those bands, there was generally one person or two people in the band that wrote all the lyrics, and
Uh-huh.
then the band would create the music around those lyrics, and that wasn't the case with Queen.
Yeah, well, I thought Spotify told you how many songs were in a playlist, but they just told me the time. 3 hours and 10 minutes worth of Queen music is good.
So a decent amount.
It's a decent amount. Yeah. They used to
uh
have the track numbers on there, but they don't anymore.
I think if you look on the computer, it tells you.
Okay.
uh but like the Rolling Stones, I look at a lot like the Beatles. I don't think the Rolling Stones had, I would put Goat's Head Soup as a 10 out of 10 album. I would
Yeah.
put Beggar's Banquet
I was
probably
just gonna say Beggar's Banquet for
as
sure.
a 10 out of 10 album.
Sticky
Uh,
Fingers. Is there a song on there like that?
there's for me, there's several songs that I could do without on Sticky Fingers.
Really? Maybe. I'd have to
Let
look
It
and see,
Bleed
but
is another really good one, but there's a track or two on Let It Bleed I can kind of do without also.
yeah.
Um, Frog Stomp by Silverchair, going
Yep,
back to
that's a
like
good one.
90s grunge. That's like fucking album recorded by some 15-year-old kids.
Yeah.
I think they were like 16 when the album came out.
Mhm.
But it's just it's one of those albums where I don't think they were ever quite able to like recapture that magic from that first album. Freak Show is a great album. The stuff that came out afterwards,
Was it Mirror Ball?
no,
That
that was Mirror Ball was uh was Neil Young.
oh, what was I thinking? What was that one album they had? It was Neon
Diorama.
Sun, Neon Ballroom.
Oh, Neon Ballroom.
Yeah,
Neon Ballroom is a good
yeah,
album. It's got some really good tracks. They actually just released the reissue of that. But
yeah.
it just never, for me, they never, and I know they changed after Frog Stomp. They really kind of changed their sound. They moved away from some of that grunge stuff that they did on Frog Stomp, um, and went to maybe a little more like straightforward kind of alternative, which still worked.
Right.
Their first like 4 or 5 albums are all fantastic fucking albums, but I don't think they quite ever lived up to what they released on Frog Stomp.
Right.
Any more albums on your list, Ian?
No, I mean I could probably come up with a bunch more, but
I mean, I've got a whole bunch left on my list. Death on
how long do you
De-
want this episode to be?
uh, Death at Venice Beach by the Bomb Pops. As far as like newer albums go, that's a fantastic one. Uh, Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. I'm not a Beach Boys fan at all. Pet Sounds is an incredible fucking album, though. And I think it was a little bit different than a lot of stuff. Some of the stuff that Beach Boys were doing before that album came out. Uh, Sticking with like
Oh,
punk. What?
no, go ahead. You stick with
I was
punk.
gonna say
I
sticking with
do have
like
a couple
punk.
more. I have a couple more.
Goodbye Lullaby from Avril Lavigne, I think, is a highly fucking underrated album, and it's not a punk album at all. It's more of there's a lot of stuff on there that's maybe a little more like straightforward early 2000s rock or
Mhm.
alternative. But it's just a great album. Some of the stuff that she was trying to do musically on the album really fucking worked. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John
Mhm.
is hands down my favorite Elton John album.
Well, of course.
Um, Newer album was Dancing with the Curse by Get Dead. I think is the best punk album of the 2000s.
Hmm.
Uh, and I say that because I don't consider American Idiot a punk album, but
No, I don't. I wouldn't go that as far to say it's a punk album either. It's a because it's well, first of all, it's a concept album. Punk albums can't be concept albums.
yeah,
Second of all, it's
I
just
mean they can, but
Green Day just kind of moved into that hard rock category,
it's like
which
it's like a
is a
hard rock
broad.
alternative
Yeah, it's a
album.
broad category. Hard rock can cover a large area, and you can even include some punk into that. But
Yeah.
it's not a punk. They're not really a punk band. They really haven't really been a punk band for a long time.
Since Dookie, really.
Yeah, exactly. So
Maybe, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, I will say that
there's punk elements throughout.
there's punk album elements to all their albums,
Right.
but I think Dookie was their last punk album.
I would agree.
And people, man,
Insomniac, well, no, because
whenever
Insomniac
I
has
talk
it's
about,
even half and half.
yeah, when I talk about Green Day on the YouTube channel, I always get people fucking bitch complain. Oh, they're not even, they're not even punk. Like, yeah, they
They
are.
were.
If you listen to their first three albums, they're definitely punk. Their first three albums are definitely punk albums. Like I said,
Yeah.
with Insomniac, it's a mix. They
Yeah.
started
It's a
kind of
mix.
drifting a little bit further away. With Nimrod, I think there's a little bit more punk elements to Nimrod than there is with Insomniac. There's also some straightforward mainstream rock elements
Right.
to Nimrod.
Warning,
Warning,
if it's anything close to punk, it's an acoustic punk album,
yeah, it's not. I
which
mean,
isn't.
yeah, there really isn't really kind of any punk
Not
elements to Warning, but there definitely is in
there's some punk
American Idiot.
elements in their lyrics
Yeah,
on Warning, but not
yeah,
musically, no.
yeah.
Um, but I have two more albums to put on my list.
Okay,
Uh, Tea for the Tillerman by Cat Stevens
it's a great album.
and Remember by Rusted Root are both 10 out of 10 albums.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't listened to the rest of Root in a long fucking time, but yeah, I mean, I kind of have to agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess Harvest by Neil Young. I know a lot of people don't consider that Neil Young's best album. I definitely do. I know a lot of people say, oh, you got to listen to like the 80s and 90s Neil Young stuff, and even some of the newer stuff gets great reviews. But to me, you know, Harvest was like the pinnacle of his music career. Um, the Doors self-titled album,
Yep.
that's like almost it can be a greatest hits album in and of itself. It's so fucking
Right.
good.
Oh yeah, that's a 10 out of 10. I think that there's no argument. No one can even argue that's not a ten
Yeah,
out of 10.
yeah. Goldfinger, The Knife, I feel like is a really underrated album. I think it came out in like 2017, 2018. A really fucking great album. Um, Good Charlotte's self-titled album came out 2000 or 2001. The funny thing was, Mandy and I saw Good Charlotte play. You have to remember, like in the early 2000s, at one point, Good Charlotte was one of the biggest bands in the fucking world.
Right.
Mandy and I saw them open for MXPX before like anyone knew who they were.
Uh-huh.
And I remember like the very first song of their opening set, I told Mandy, I was like, man, these guys are gonna be fucking big. Like, this is a great fucking concert. They put on a better show than MXPX did. And Mandy went out the next day because I think all their CDs were sold out at the show. So Mandy went to a couple different stores the next day and found their CD for me. And like that week, I swear it was like by the end of that week, they were fucking massive. They're all over TRL and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But it was funny how fast they blew up with that album. Uh, I'd put Hum, You'd Prefer an Astronaut on there, even though it's an album
It's a deep cut for sure. But yeah, it's a
it's
good
not in everyone's wheelhouse. Shoegaze is
yeah.
not something that even I'm a big fan of.
I wouldn't even
But
know what it was until a couple years ago. And
yeah,
we've been listening
no,
to
man, you
Hum
just
for decades.
yeah, absolutely. Less Than Jake, Hello Rockview. Even though I put a big question mark next to there because I'm not a big fan of how they recorded the horns on that album.
Mm-hmm.
And I never quite knew why until I saw. I think we've actually talked about this before, but I was listening to a podcast a year or so back, and the guy that produced the album talked about how that was the first album that, or one of the first albums that used Pro Tools to record the album on. So they were like messing around with like auto tune, and they auto tuned the horns on that,
Yeah.
and they don't sound bad. They don't sound artificial. They just
No.
sound too clean. They took out all the imperfections
that you would get with a
that
normal
you would
horn
get.
sound
Yeah,
that
yeah,
add to the horn sound.
yeah. So it sounds too good, I guess,
Right.
if that
Yeah.
makes
No,
sense.
I get it
Uh,
does. It does to me.
so maybe I kind of have to knock it down like a half a point.
Right.
So maybe it's not really a 10 out of 10. It's like a 9.5 out of 10. But Linkin Park Hybrid Theory, I would definitely put on that list. I think it's were they really? I guess they were kind of new metal, maybe not new metal, but
They were
uh,
one of the early
early.
progenitors of
But
new metal.
beginning to end, man, that is absolutely incredible. Actually, when we get done recording, I might have to fucking listen to that. It's just a great fucking album. MXPX slowly going the way of the Buffalo, I think, is another one of those 10 out of 10 albums. Um, and I guess I have to leave or end it like this, or at least end my list with two albums from Blink 182, because of course they're, you know, hands down one of my top three bands.
Can
But
I
they're
guess what they are?
yeah, go ahead and guess.
Well, Enema of the State is one for
No.
sure. Really? Then it would have to
Yeah.
be uh their self-titled album,
Well, they don't have a self-titled album.
or what's that one that's just that? Yeah,
They have an untitled album, but they do
or
not have a
untitled.
self-titled.
Whatever, untitled.
Yes.
That's the one. That's the
Yeah,
one.
because I mean I consider their untitled album from 2003 the greatest album recorded in the 2000s,
Okay.
because
And then
musically it's very like and I know a lot of people listening to this are probably like, you're out of your fucking mind, but if you listen to like early Blink, they had this like uh it was basically a band doing dick and fart jokes. Like a lot of
right,
the time,
right.
like if you listen to their live album, the Mark, Tom and Travis show, there's a like in between every single track is them making basically dick and fart jokes. And actually the last like 20 tracks on that live album is all just stage banter between Mark and Tom during over that tour. It's fucking hilarious to listen to. But
I bet.
by the time they made their untitled album, they were in it's a very kind of dark album in a lot of different ways. They lost a lot of that like childish humor that was on their other albums. It's a very mature album for the stuff that they had done in their career. And you know, whenever you have Robert Smith on your album, it's always a big plus for me also.
It's a cloud that comes over the music, but it's a cloud of pure artistic expression, because Robert
Yeah,
Smith is an artist.
yeah,
But I would say he brings this like he's got this like beautiful dark cloud that follows him everywhere.
yeah. And it's a
The way
great
I could
fucking
describe
track. It's an incredible fucking track that he's on. And I don't know, and there's even songs like there's one track on the album that's not really a song, but it's Mark Hoppus's grandfather was in World War II. I think it was World War II, and wrote a letter to his grandmother uh while he was off in the war.
it. Mm-hmm.
And that they got some English actress to read the letter over music, and it's a really great track. You know, just different stuff like that you would never, if all you ever know from Blink 182 is like Dude Ranch and Enema of the State,
You're missing
their
out.
untitled album is very, very fucking different.
Yeah. So it's I was gonna say Dude Ranch, but I don't think it's Dude Ranch is the next one. The other one is the what's the album with the uh it's almost like a stencil map kind of I'm picturing.
Stenciled Map.
Oh, let me just look it up.
Stenciled Map. They don't have an album
Just
that's like a stenciled map.
just it's I'm trying to describe it from memory of you know.
I have multiple copies of the Elder album on vinyl
Yeah.
and multiple
Oh,
copies
oh,
of it
never
on
mind.
CD.
I know what it is. It's not the one I'm thinking of. It's take off your pants and
Take
jacket.
off your pants and jacket. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. The album I was thinking of was Neighborhoods.
Oh, okay.
But take off your pants and jacket is your other favorite album.
Yes,
Your other 10
yes.
out of 10 one.
That's the other 10 out of 10 album. And it's kind of along the same lines. It's like a it has a little bit more of the childish humor and shit like that Blink was really kind of known for, but it also has a lot of darker themes to the album. There's
Right.
songs about divorce and things like that, and even on like an album like Emma the State, where it very much is like the dick and fart jokes. There's a song like Adam's song is on that album. Adam's song is about teenage suicide. So they do have darker tones throughout their. I mean, Adam's song is probably one of my favorite Blink songs, but I would definitely have those two albums on my list.
I thought of two more that I can't even really know why I forgot them. And they're both kind of by the same artist. Ben Folds, Songs for Silverman.
Yeah,
is a 10 out of 10 album. It's my favorite of his albums. And the first Ben Folds 5 album is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I was never a big Ben Folds fan. They do, I think they did have some really good tracks though.
Well, there's Ben Folds 5, and then there's just Ben Folds solo artists. Yeah. But
they're
I
really
love
similar.
Ben Folds. Oh yeah, I mean, because Ben Folds kind of writes all the music, but
yeah,
or at least most of it. But I'm a huge Ben Folds fan. Huge Ben Folds. He's probably my at least in my top 10 of artists. Maybe arguably in my top 5.
Yeah.
But Songs for Silverman and the first Ben Folds 5 album are my favorites. Well, those top. They're definitely 10 out of 10 albums.
Well, that's a lot of albums we talked about. So
yeah, I just looked. We're well over an hour. We have to.
I know we are. But I guess we can kind of end it there. Drop us, if you're watching this on YouTube, drop us a comment down below. Let us know what some of your favorite 10 out of 10 albums are. Give us a thumbs up, all that YouTube-y stuff. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review on Spotify. Those are like the two big podcast platforms now, especially since Spotify bought Anchor. Well, Spotify has owned Anchor for the last several years, but they just recently changed the name. They got rid of Anchor, and I think it's now Spotify for podcasts, I think is what it's called now. So
okay.
I don't know, go on there, leave us a review, all that fun stuff. Yes, we went the whole like idea behind this podcast was something nice and short, 35 40 minutes, but as you see, when you get me talking about music, I kind of ramble on for a very fucking long time. But that's all we got.
I've been blocking you out for 30 years, so I don't know.
Yeah, I know you have that. But that's all we got. Until next time.
Talk to y'all later.
Peace.
Play my role, let me tell you about it. This shit right here, man, I'm about it. Only real niggas reside around me. Yo, lady, drop a guard around me. Dip like I know you can, bitch. Show me the ropes like we in the